I thought I'd review M25 Racer while driving around the M25, and that's an idea which felt great on paper. Shall we do it anyway? This is about the one time I will tell you, buckle up. Let's go do this stupid idea and get it out of the way.
When people ask me, why don't you have more views, this is why. Because I review such zeitgeisty titles as Davilex's 1999 budget racing game M25 Racer, which I'm sure is about to get its own acclaimed Amazon Prime TV series any moment now. And maybe even that might work. If we just had a bit of gameplay footage, we laughed at some of the jankier parts of the game, and perhaps, even if we're going to go for the gimmick video, we could make sure it's a day with good weather, clear traffic, and have a list of things which are definitely about the game to talk about. Oh no.
And you might be thinking this doesn't look much like the M25, other than the traffic, the thing the motorway's famous for. That's because this is South Mimms Services. And South Mimms is where actual M25 racing used to start. There's rumour that the fastest lap ever was about 52 minutes. Now, the M25 is 117 miles long, so do some mathematics on the average speed there. It's quite fast.
Unlike this intro, in which I have taken this long to both get to the M25 and also realise that I can't even claim this as a Timberwolf goes to real-world places that feature in a game affair. Still, let's see if we can rescue this into something vaguely approximating a game review.
The thing with M25 Racer is there's not actually that much M25 in it. In fact, there's only one track, M25 South, which is not this section. Well done, Timberwolf. Excellent planning there. Yet you do get to race at night, but most of the tracks are based around London and Oxford. At this point, you may be thinking, hang on. This thing you keep calling M25 Racer that doesn't have much M25 in it, isn't that London Racer? And, well, yes it is, but it also kind of isn't. London Racer on the PC is almost exactly the same game as M25 Racer. Some of the menus and files are different, but the races are the same and the tournament structure is the same. And this happened because M25/London Racer is a budget title. It was sold for a lot of years because people who pick up budget titles tend to want games that run on all PCs. Davilex was actually a Dutch business software developer, founded in the mid-80s by a guy called David and a guy called, you may be able to guess this, Lex. And it did business software for the Dutch market, as you might expect such a thing to do. Until at some point in the mid-90s, they thought, hey, games, those seem like a good idea to make, and so they started making games. And M25 Racer was part of the Racer series, which started out with the Netherlands-focused A2 Racer, and A2 Racer, I've seen videos of this, and let's say it looks kind of shareware quality. They followed this up with Autobahn Racer, and yes, after that, M25 Racer. M25 Racer, it's kind of okay. And I kind of knew this when I bought it. I bought this as a teenager who loved driving games and bought a lot of terrible ones. Even when I bought M25 Racer, I wasn't expecting a great experience. I wasn't expecting it to be the most amazing game ever. But I liked the concept. I liked the idea of driving around this motorway. I mean, not in these conditions, driving around it in sort of racing game conditions, which are a bit more fun and tend not to have 50 mile an hour speed limit. Now that said, the early cars you get to race aren't much faster, and they do have some rather blatant, these are definitely not licensed model names. The Nimi, the GM, and when you eventually unlock it in the first league, the BWM. It's not that sophisticated in terms of how they disguised them, really. The game's quite early in that timeline of, oh hey, we've got hardware 3D accelerators now, let's use them to recreate real places. And they did a pretty decent job of it. It's a budget game, your expectations are low, but this is very recognisable for me. Yes, they messed around with the road layout, and there's a few places where you wouldn't be driving between them that quickly, even at M25 record lap setting pace, but they're actually pretty good maps. If you're expecting a top-of-the-line, what ever passed for AAA in 1999 semi-sim racing game, then yeah, you're going to be really let down on that, right? This is a budget racing game, but within that constraint, they didn't make either of the two big budget racing game mistakes. The first of which is obviously just not caring in the slightest, where you get cars that ping all over the road the moment you press a key. You can do infinite speed in reverse, all those lovely things. But they also didn't kind of go too far and try to do a really fancy physics engine and then realise they didn't have the development time or the budget to do it. It's okay for a racing game. It's not a great racing game, but for an arcade racer, it does the job. And if you want to drive the actual M25, it's kind of here, being rainy and full of traffic, so maybe arcade racing is fine for us. The setup of it is fairly standard arcade racer fare. You've got 3 tournaments, a beginner one with slow, small cars, an intermediate one with intermediate cars, and then a top league with fast, fancy sports cars, the kind of things you'd be setting M25 lap records in, one presumes. But there's a nice little touch in it, which is that while they do indeed have the standard arcade thing of you have to win each tournament to unlock the next one, if you don't win but you do place reasonably highly, you get to unlock a car which is much better than anything anyone is going to race against you, making the tournament much easier. So you do get to see a reasonable amount of the game, and you unlock a couple more tracks, although most of them are available from the start. And really, London Racer was kind of a more accurate title for this, because most of them are in London and most of them are not the M25, although there is a country drive out to Oxford, a drive in the centre of Oxford, and then a country drive back, which takes in a few of those more rural British landmarks. And they're all pretty recognisable too, and not just the major landmarks, but the feel of the roads. The Oxford streets look like Oxford streets, London streets look like London. The M25, well, less rainy and less busy, but you can kind of tell that it's recognisably the same thing. And I like that they just had all these little touches, like a correctly liveried train crosses a bridge on one of them.
And at this point I had a problem. I was cut up by a precariously driven Audi, which rather interrupted my narrative flow. But even without that, I was having the problem I always have when I sit down to write a script about a budget game that's merely kind of okay. Except I was now having it in real time.
I find them hard to cover, and I find them hard to talk about or draw any useful conclusion from, but I also have a lot of time for them, because this was my history with gaming, right? Didn't on the kind of budget that I had to play games, and certainly on the kind of PC that I had to play them, you weren't going out and buying this sort of AAA games every week. There's a game that you can pick up for $7.99, and it's going to be maybe okay. You're going to have $7.99's worth of fun out of it. If Cybermorph on the Atari Jaguar is the reference unit of one fun, then I'd say M25 Racer it's at least 3.5 fun, and that's an amount of fun.
Well, yes, that is an amount of fun, but maybe not a big amount of fun.
Probably the worst thing about this as a racing game is that it does have some truly obnoxious rubber banding. The enemy cars, if you're winning by too large a margin, do tend to get a bit faster, and this is sort of irritating when they start going faster than your car possibly can go, but it's mostly manageable, and if it does become unmanageable, you can just restart the race until they stop rubber banding to ridiculous levels. However, the police in their Vauxhall Astras. The police drive what appear to be infinitely fast Vauxhall Astras. A police chase can be ended, well, not really ended, but postponed long enough to finish the race, simply by driving along the wrong side of the road, because what happens then is the AI decides to accelerate with infinite speed towards you, get ahead of you, and then block the correct side of the road, while you sail off into the distance. Budget game. There are expectations here.
Despite my misgivings, I would say that almost classes as a successful, if somewhat inconsistently written review. And getting there was definitely not a mission to recover 10 minutes of usable footage from somebody who spent nearly half the M25 reviewing bridges.
There's a bridge in this style a bit further anti-clockwise, which is famous for a piece of graffiti which started out as just Peas. Peas was a guy who tagged a lot of infrastructure in and around London in the 80s, and then when it was kind of having a bit of trouble with the law, as someone who tags a lot of infrastructure in and around London might be expected to have, someone added some words to it and they said, give Peas a chance. And that's hilarious because, of course, it's a John Lennon song and it is also a thing that we would like the legal establishment of the United Kingdom to do.
Reviewing sketchily loaded pickup trucks.
Those are some jaunty wheelbarrows in that Ranger. And they seem to be ratchet strapped. I'm aware that a ratchet strap is the universal unit of perfectly securing cargo. Once you've got one of those boys on it, it's not going anywhere. But still, you know, that's quite high. I wonder if he gets up. I wonder if that pickup gets up to high enough speed, whether the airflow over the top of the wheel on that wheelbarrow will make it rotate. That would be very pleasing to me if it did.
And reviewing the mechanical condition and, more unfortunately, interior aroma of my own car.
The stop-start's working. That's fancy. The battery's in a good place. I've got a happy battery. That makes you feel like the car's falling apart. It's not falling apart. My car is not disintegrating around me. It's in quite good condition, mechanically and cosmetically. Maybe slightly full of dog huff.
Now, I don't want to say I'm so bad at this that there's an entire reel of outtakes and pointless diversions, but there's an entire reel of outtakes and pointless diversions. Thankfully, at the end of all this, I did get distracted from my distractions by the actual game review I was supposed to be doing.
It's not making horrible noises or smells, and like that's sort of, yes, baseline expectation for a car, this achieves it. No, this is a much better car than M25 Racer is a racing game, and that's not to totally denigrate M25 Racer, but also, you know, it's not top tier. I'm aware it was not top tier at the time. I think I've said that. But I just want to say, hey, this existed. It was okay. Developers did have fun with some very 90s M25-centric cultural references. You'll notice as you race that you get photographed by speed cameras. But you can also knock them down for a little bit of a bonus, and surprisingly not destroy your car, as doing that in real life would. You know, it's a game, it's supposed to be fun. Really, what do you expect here?
Well, perhaps more than 3.5 times the amount of fun to be found in Cybermorph for the Atari Jaguar. But, well, it was only $7.99. Besides, that's the point we'll have to live with, because despite all the traffic, I had finally run out of M25 on which to review things.
And so we wave goodbye to the M25, although we don't wave goodbye to traffic. Thank you, rainy Friday afternoon. I really appreciated that. And also, you know, wave goodbye to a definitely let's not do that again video idea. But, you know, it's been a bit of fun. Reminiscing about a game which really doesn't get much love, because games which were merely okay tend not to get much love, but I still enjoyed it. Possibly that says more about me than it does about the game. But I liked what it tried to do, and I bet it did it, well, okay, because that's the problem with okay games. They do things okay. Let's go and sit in traffic for some more hours.